Welcome back to this course on copyright and related rights law. In this week, we are discussing performers' rights. In the last session, we had discussed certain definitions of performances and an understanding of who a performer is as per different copyright acts in different parts of the world. What we will look at today is the connection between work and performances and the clear distinction between work and performances. In this image, we can see an actor on stage. Ask yourselves, is an actor an author? In answering this question, you must have been reminded that an author is the creator of a work. And therefore, you must be asking yourself, if an actor is an author, what is the work? In answering this question, if you are saying that acting is based on a script, then the script is a dramatic work. But is an actor the author of the dramatic work? If a script is written by the script writer is the author of the script. Whereas a performer, such as an actor, is presenting the script through his acting. A specific character that would be present in that script is what is being presented by this actor here. So, in considering a distinction between a script writer and an actor, where there is a script which is being presented by an actor, we can say that in this situation, this actor is not an author. Let us look at, once again, what is the definition of performance under the Indian Copyright Act. Section 2Q defines performance as performance in relation to performer's right means any visual or acoustic presentation made live by one or more performers. The word we've highlighted is presentation. Let us ask ourselves, what is an actor presenting? As we considered in this example of a script being a dramatic work and the performer presenting the script and the portion in the script which pertains to his character, we can say that the actor is presenting a work which in this case is a dramatic work. We must also keep in mind a basic difference between two words. One is artist without an E and an artist with an E. The use of artist without an E is in reference to the author of an artistic work. A painter is an artist. A person who makes a drawing is an artist. A person who makes a sculpture is an artist. An artist with an E, as you can see, is a professional entertainer, especially a singer or dancer. The difference in these terms is effectively a difference between work and performance. A painter who is an author of an artistic work is an artist without an E, and an actor who is performing or presenting a dramatic work such as a script is an artist with an E. In our usage of these terms, we must be careful, because to call an actor an artist without an E is to suggest that the actor is the author of a work. And that, as we are attempting to understand, is problematic. Let us consider, if an actor is not an author, what does that mean? Does that mean that the actor does not have a copyright protection for his acting? When we considered this question, in your mind, you must have also thought that an author is somebody who is connected to a work, and what we have been understanding over the many sessions that we've had in this course is that copyright subsists in a work. So, if we are saying that a performer is not an author, or in this specific case, that the actor is not an author, then does it mean that there is no copyright protection over the acting? Let us look at Section 14 of the Indian Copyright Act. It says, for the purposes of this Act, copyright means the exclusive right, subject to the provisions of this Act, to do or authorize the doing of any of the following acts in respect of a work or any substantial part thereof. You can see that Section 14 uses the term copyright only in respect of a work. There is no reference to performance in Section 14 at all. In terms of the reference that we find, that is an authorization which can be made by the author of a work, and not that a performer has a copyright. This is something which I will explain in the following slides. For now, we must remember that Section 14, which provides the meaning of copyright, only attaches copyright to a work and not a performance. In other words, only a work can be authorized for usage by way of copyright under Section 14. Just like how we considered the question of whether an actor is an author, consider this question. Is the singer an author? Are you better equipped to answer this question now? How are you answering this question? In your mind, are you thinking, what is the work? And is the singer the author of that work? Consider, how is a singer a performer? Let us go back to the definition of performance. A singer is primarily an acoustic presenter. As an acoustic presenter, a singer is presenting the literary work and the musical work, or it could simply be a musical work by way of humming. Humming would be a kind of presentation in which there is no usage of words, and therefore there wouldn't be any application of literary work. But because humming involves a tune, we can say that there is a musical work which is being presented. You would also remember from our discussion in the previous session that a singer who's making an acoustic presentation in a studio would still be considered as a live acoustic presentation as per the requirement under Section 2Q. To re-emphasize, remember that when a singer performs, the singer is performing a particular work. It could be literary and musical work together, or it could be simply a musical work. But there is a presentation of something. In other words, the content of the singing which is being presented, that content is the work. And the creator of the work is the author, the presenter of the work is the performer. I hope now we are able to make a clear distinction between a work and a performance. To supplement our understanding, let us consider Section 14 once again. In Section 14, we had seen in the earlier slide that copyright applies only in respect of a work. With respect to literary, dramatic, or musical works, what the Copyright Act provides in Section 14 is a type of copyright which is to perform the work in public. Performing the work in public would mean that there is a live presentation of the work, and such a performance is something which must be authorized by the holder of copyright. And therefore, we see that performances must be authorized by the holder of the work. So, not just is work and performance different, because the content, which is the work, is something that the performer is presenting, because the content is under copyright protection, the performer's performance will have to be authorized. Therefore, we say that to sing is to perform. And if a literary or and musical work is to be performed, then a copyright authorization must be sought from the owner of that work. The owner could be the author, and as we have discussed in our previous sessions, ownership could vest with another person depending on transactions which may have occurred between the author and another person, or it could simply be a consideration of first ownership based on a certain type of contract. Let us also consider Section 38A of the Indian Copyright Act, which talks about exclusive right of performers, something that we will discuss in great detail in the next session. But you can see how this provision begins. It states, without prejudice to the rights conferred on authors. It continues, the performer's right, which is an exclusive right subject to the provisions of this Act to do or authorize for doing any of the following acts in respect of the performance. Therefore, with these provisions, Section 14, Section 38A, we can very clearly say that where there is a work existing in which there is a copyright, performer's right will be a secondary right. In fact, if a performance is not authorized, what that means is that the performer right would be contested. Because we are saying that a performance will lead to performer's right, are we considering that there is some qualifying threshold that a performance has to meet in order for performer rights to attach? Let us consider first Section 2Q. An objective assessment of Section 2Q tells us that in order for a presentation to be considered as a performance, it must be a visual or acoustic presentation made live. Therefore, two objective considerations. One, the fact that it is perceptible either visually or through sound, and second, that it is live. Apart from this, there is nothing else that Section 2 Clause Q tells us. Therefore, in considering the question on whether there is any qualification such as originality which works must satisfy in order for copyright to subsist in such work, is there a similar kind of a qualification with performances? That's the question we're asking. Let us take a look at Section 38. Section 38 talks about performer's right, and it says, where any performer appears or engages in any performance, he shall have a special right to be known as the performer's right in relation to such performance. That is the extent of what the Copyright Act tells us about performer's right. What that means is, unlike Section 13, which spoke about originality with respect to certain works and skipped such usage with some other types of works, in Section 38, there is no mention of the term original. See Section 13. You will recall that our discussion into subject matters had focused to a great length on how originality would be considered with respect to literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works, and not with respect to cinematograph films and sound recordings. Is that the same consideration with Section 38? That performances are similar to sound recordings, and that is why they are not considered original? Is that the reason? Let us recall the basic difference between a literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic work and a sound recording and a cinematograph film. We have understood that there can be systems such as a system of copyright in India wherein the author of a cinematograph film and a sound recording is a producer. The producer not being a creative professional who is bringing out a creative expression in the making of a cinematograph film or a sound recording. There is a clear distinction between creative expressions such as literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works and cinematograph films and sound recordings. That is why originality is attached to only some types of works and not others. But are we saying that an actor or a singer is not a creative professional? We know of many singers, we know of many actors, and surely the consideration in our mind that makes these performances stand out is the creative potential for such performances. Therefore, we cannot say that a performance is in some way like a sound recording, and that is why the term original has not been used in Section 38. What could then be the reason why original has not been used in Section 38? Let us consider the basics of originality. We had discussed that a basic consideration of originality is that there must be independence of creation. In other words, a work must not be copied from another work. And if that can be shown, then at a very basic level, originality can subsist. On account of the nature of performances, can we not say that every performance is different from the other? Individual personalities are unique. The way I present a particular script would not be the way as you, the listener, is going to present that script. Our presentations are going to be distinct because of our personality. And therefore, can we not say that individual presentations because of their attachment to personality traits, is always going to be an independent creation. And therefore, while a work could be copied from another work, a performance cannot be copied from another performance. The content could be the same, but the performance itself would be different because of the difference in personality. Therefore, we can say that a performance cannot be infringing of another performance. I hope you are getting this point. Thus, because two performances by two separate performers are independent and definitely not copied from each other, we can say that this consideration of originality does not arise with respect to performers. Therefore, every performance, we can say, carries a unique touch. And by that logic, every performance is original. But is there any need for satisfaction of some minimal degree of creativity for performers' right to attach to performances? Just like how it is with works. On this point, there is no understanding. And we can say that because there is no originality requirement for performances, a question of applying the context of minimal degree of creativity does not arise. Are there any exceptions then to who a performer can be, or is every performer a performer under the Copyright Act? We can see that a specific exclusion has in fact been made by the 2012 amendment to the Copyright Act, which has introduced a proviso to section 2QQ, something that we had seen yesterday in the last session as well. Let us look at this proviso once more. It says, provided that in a cinematograph film, a person whose performance is casual or incidental in nature and, in the normal course of the practice of the industry, is not acknowledged anywhere, including in the credits of the film, shall not be treated as a performer, except for the purpose of Clause B of Section 38B. We will discuss in the later sessions what is the purpose of Clause B of Section 38B, but let us focus on the exclusion of certain kinds of presentation as envisaged in this proviso. What we can see is that based on an industry assessment of whether a presentation is casual or incidental and is not something which is acknowledged, then such a presentation would be considered as not a performance. Therefore, within the Copyright Act, we find only this specific exclusion and no other kind of exclusion. What do we understand? That where copyright in works can be determined based on originality, performances, because they are by nature original, that is not a consideration which can apply to distinguish between protectable performances and unprotectable performances. Rather, a specific exclusion has been carved out against extras and junior artists who would fall within the proviso of Section 2QQ. Such an exception, we have seen, is also present in the French IP Code, which specifically excludes ancillary performances. Having understood these important points with respect to performance, are we able to answer this question? Can a performance be made without a pre-existing work? What if there is no script for an actor to act? What if there is no literary work or musical work for a singer to sing? Can a singer still sing? Can an actor still act? We are thinking yes, it is possible. It is possible for an experienced actor, for example, to simply come on stage and play a character role. It is possible for a singer to come onto stage and make up lyrics and create a tune to attach to those lyrics as they sing. In doing so, are we saying that a performer is creating a work with his performance? Is that a possibility? Because a performance is severable from the content which is being presented. If there is no pre-existing work and a performer is presenting a particular content, then the content so developed, can that be copyrighted? In other words, is the performer in creating a work also the author of the content which he is presenting? This is possible, provided that fixation is not a requirement. We have understood fixation would mean that there is some level of permanence, of perception possible with respect to that particular expression. Therefore, when a work is written, there is permanence to that perception. When there is a painting made, there is a permanence to that expression. But we have also seen that with musical works, there is a specific exception that has been carved out, where fixation has been diluted. We can then say that with certain kinds of works wherein fixation is not a requirement, it is possible that a performer can in fact create work while they perform and can claim authorship over such work. With this understanding of the difference between work and performance and the interaction between work and performance, in the next session we will see what are the economic rights that a performer has within the Copyright Act. Thank you for joining me. See you all in the next session. Thank you.